Tic tac, tic tac, tic tac. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for tuning in to the first Tic Tac transfer show of the season. And what a transfer show we've got lined up. We didn't plan it like this, but sometimes it works out to talk what's hot and what's not in the world of transfers. Everyone loves the world of transfers, right? And talking about hot, my God, I've got some hot people to introduce to you. Who's going to chat to you today? Or maybe some hot and some not. We're going to start with Mr. Mo Stewart. How are we, pal? How are you doing? I know you've been feeling a bit under the weather. Hope you're all fit and dandy now.
I am. It's amazing what a day in the transfer market can do for your health, isn't it? In all seriousness, though, I was feeling a bit rough over the weekend. I think we're at that time of year where everyone seems to pick up a little something. But yeah, it's transfer window started with a bang. And so, yeah, we're all having to just kind of ride it for a little while, aren't we?
That's one way of describing it. I'm sure we'll get into other ways of describing it as the show goes on. Of course, I've got Mick Moran joining me as well after a little while out. Mick's been a bit busy, but good to have him back. Mick, how you feeling, bro?
Yeah, I think I've got the same bit of man flu, but I'm just getting over it. Just listening to you guys talking tips on what was it?
Well, this is the sort of the commercial way of fixing it. What me and Mo were talking about behind the scenes is the actual herbal remedy way of doing it, but we're not going to give it away. People don't pay us enough to just give it away just like that. Do you know what I mean? It's like these are like
DM me, I'll tell you.
These are family secrets, man. Come on, man. But yeah, no, good to hear from you again. Good. Oh, you sound all right now. You're all right. You look all right. That's the main thing.
Yeah, I'm sound. I'm happy with a bit of news coming through today. Obviously, gonna get into it a little bit more. But yeah, it looks it's exciting times.
It is, and I've got the returning Dan, who's obviously been busy because cricket season started. And Dan, if people remember the last show he done was just before the start of the cricket season, and he was gloating about his skills. How's the season started off?
Yeah, it started off really well.
On a personal and on a team-wise.
Yeah, all good, mate. Yeah, 19 wickets in 6 games. I think we are now. Yeah, lost 1 game. Second in the league. The only game we lost to was top of the league. So yeah, things are good. And yeah, like you guys, I'm feeling well. Thankfully, I've not been under the weather. But my top tip, if you are unwell, olive leaf extract from Holman Barrett. Unbelievable stuff. Tastes like the last thing you ever want to taste, but it'll sort you out. And yeah, I'm all good, man. I'm glad to be here. I had 24 hours off football at one point last week, but I'm fully immersed right away.
How did you survive?
I know.
Yeah, how did you survive? But, you done well. You done well. My God, a lot to get through. So much to get through. Good news, bad news, mixed news. I don't know where to start. First and foremost, smash a like for us. As Jay Rich says, what a panel. Forget bigging at me, but what a panel. And smash a like on your way in. There's over 400 of you already in here. And as it builds up, we'll get into the core chat. I want to come to you first. I want to speak about something that we know was in the pipeline for a little while now, but it's near enough confirmed, and we probably expect an announcement before the end of the week. And that's the young Aberdeen right back Calvin Ramsay. It seems as though we've chosen him, he's chosen us, basically. Cut a long story short. What do you know about him? What did you know about him, and what do you know about him now since we've been interested? And just your general thoughts.
Well, I can't say I knew too much before the interest came along. SPL, unfortunately, is low in my rotation of European leagues.
Surprised. Hey. There's something missing from your... exactly.
I didn't say it was missing. I said it's low.
Okay. True.
Like, there are only so many hours in the day after all. But since this links have come in, I've obviously done a little bit of reading up on it. And the interesting thing for me is that he seems to be touted as being stylistically similar to Trent Alexander-Arnold, rather than just being a young player who has some of those qualities. He appears to have quite a few of the qualities of Trent, which is a great thing. I think from the Aberdeen's perspective, they've always known that this was a matter of time in terms of when they were going to let go of him. They had their fee set out in stone from quite a way out, and it doesn't appear to have budged from that 4 million mark. So I assume all that's happened behind the scenes is personal terms, add-ons, sell-on fee, all of the kind of the small print of these kind of transfers. So I think when you look at what we're going to be potentially getting, yes, he is a teenager, but it is an exciting role. And I believe if you look at the kind of minutes that we're expecting from our backup right back, he will probably be starting most of the domestic cup games at a time when Joe Gomez will probably be starting inside him at centre-half. But if you're thinking Trent's getting the rest in the league, that probably still will be Gomez, at least for the next season or two. But his ceiling is still really quite high from what I'm hearing. So that's good news. Pretty much.
I've just brought up Dominic King's update from last night, or was it the night before? I can't remember now. Possibly last night, where he speaks about sort of the situation and how likely it looks. Dan, what this means as a result of Calvin Ramsay coming in, it kind of, we already knew, we spoke about Neco Williams, but it kind of just it just says Neco Williams is for sale and is very, very likely to be sold, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and I think it's something we all knew from quite a long way out. After the Euros last year, he essentially said the same thing then. He was looking to move on. I think the important thing there is he's a couple of years older than Calvin Ramsay. Ramsay's only 18. Like, he can afford to wait a little bit. Like, don't get me wrong, it's some weight behind Trent. We all know that. But like Mo says, domestic cup action, potentially playing minutes at the end of Premier League games here and there, it's great for us because that's what we need from someone underneath Trent. And also, it's probably enough for him at this stage in his career. So it works really well. And I think the really interesting thing is, which Mo highlighted, is 9 assists this year he got, which for a teenager in what is a decent standard of Scottish football is outstanding. And in terms of the money, just to touch on that, 4 million is a hell of a lot of money up there. Like, with all due respect, Liverpool, Premier League, it's not a great amount. But to a Scottish, not Celtic and Rangers, that's a huge amount of money. So every party's getting the best bit of this deal. But yeah, like I say, I do think that's it for Neco Williams. And I think he's probably someone, if you watch his Wales performances, who deserves to go and get first team football somewhere. It's just not going to happen for us.
Yeah, you're right. That's a very key point, especially with them qualifying for the World Cup. He's got a taste of playing on a regular basis with Fulham. He's got a taste of World Cup. I think it suits all parties. And we could do with another Scottish fullback, right, Mick? We can't have enough Scottish fullbacks. We've got a history of Scottish fullbacks, some great illustrious names. Why not add Calvin Ramsay to that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, like the boys have said, it's summed it up perfectly. Like, he's a couple of years younger than Neco, and I think Neco Williams obviously went out on loan and has done really well. And
is that how you say that? Is that how you say the name correctly? So it's Neco, not Neco.
I don't know. I probably Neco. I'm probably just butchering it.
All right. If there's any Welsh fans, Welsh speaking, let us know how the correct pronunciation. Because I do like to mess it up. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just saying. Yeah, I think it was 3 years younger than Neco. I'll go with Neco now because I feel like I've messed it up.
No, I think you might have been right. I think you're right. I think Neco sounds a bit right.
Sounds a bit more exotic, doesn't it?
Exotic, yeah. Neco.
but we know William. I'll go with Williams instead. But we know Williams is a good player. But I think when he puts a Liverpool shirt on, I think just from the stuff that's happened in his past with the having to delete social media and Instagram blackout, whatever else, and getting butchered for, quite frankly, putting in good performances, but just not to the level of Trent, which, how can you compare to Trent Alexander-Arnold? It's ridiculous. But I echo what Dan said. Like, if you think Trent in maybe, so in 3 years, Calvin Ramsay will be 21, Trent will be 26 going on 27. So there's a doorway there, there's a pathway for him to get into this team. And like I said, I didn't know about the assist, like Dan just mentioned there. That's ridiculous, to be fair, to get that many for such a young kid. And I think when we were on the show a couple of weeks, so I done obviously me standard YouTube digging but like I did say, like Voronin looks like Pele on YouTube compilations. But from what you can see on there, like you can see like he's the archetypal Liverpool Klopp fullback, gets forward, maybe needs to improve defensively, but then what fullback doesn't in today's football? So another good sign. Hopefully that we can kind of get at the right point and push them onto bigger and better things.
Do you know what I like about him, guys? I don't know if you've seen him, or you've seen him, but one thing that stands out, despite his age, he's got quite a bit of size on him compared to sort of Conor Bradley, who's the current young understudy. I think that's crucial. I think we do take a look at that, don't we? It is a crucial part of our when we're looking at our player. We've spoken about it before that the physical side of things has to be sort of there, and you can see it. He's as we've said, he's only 19. He's still growing, but there is a nice size on him, isn't there, Mo? You can tell that he can handle himself, and as Dan says, playing in that league, we can say what we want about the quality. The physical demands will 100% be there, right?
Oh, for sure. And I think you've seen it already this season when you see the introduction of Tsimikas. So when we're playing, any of the two centre-backs and Trent, these are three imposing physical guys. So then you've got Tsimikas, who maybe not quite as physically imposing. So you see a lot of teams try and play diagonal balls where they'll have their main striker pull across and try and compete with Tsimikas. So then they can win the ball and move them from second ball. So having that physicality as a fullback is going to be important. It's something that Robertson's been able to kind of alleviate just with his clever in positioning. And he's always good at giving them a nudge at the right time and getting away with it. He's probably learned that from Milner. But that's something that you are going to have to think about increasingly. And I think when we look across the profile of players that Liverpool are going to be looking at across all positions, I do think an increase in physicality might be something that has been earmarked for long, because as much as, we'll get onto the options for different places, forwards and midfielders, what have you. And I like a lot of them, but I do think it's something where it might have been earmarked as a potential danger against certain teams who may look to try to dominate physically if certain people, say a Fabinho or a Van Dijk, aren't around.
I think how I'm going to judge transfers for the purpose of the viewers and subscribers is going to be Tic Tacs, rating them on Tic Tacs. Don't tell me to grow up, because I won't. So 3 Tic Tacs will be like sort of done, certified, going to happen, and 1 Tic Tac means like sort of won't happen, very doubtful. I think Neco Williams going out, guys, unanimously, I think that's a 3, isn't it? That's a 3 Tic Tac. Yeah. We can't see it. We can't see any other. It'll be silly if we sent him out on loan again, right?
Yeah.
One thing I would say, we have to see how Fulham decides to go about their Premier League business, because they have been burnt before by spending big. However, he has already shown that he can work in their team in the way that they want to continue to play, I'm assuming. So that it gives them a level of continuity that teams need when you're coming into a new league. So I can see a world where Fulham are willing to pay. And if it is 10 to 15, then that's very much in their world. It's not going to stop them going after other targets. And the other thing about Neco is that time at Fulham really kind of reminded everybody of his qualities and the fact that he can play very well, because it wasn't just good for them. He was one of their best players in that final run of the season. So sometimes teams can kind of get a bit like, oh, well, he's just sitting on Liverpool's bench. How good can he be? And then we get to see them outside, and it's like, this is how good he can be. So I feel like if Fulham aren't willing to pony up, there might be a few other clubs who will.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the best way to sort of look at it. Someone will give us that 10 to 15 million, as you said, and we keep it moving, especially Calvin Ramsay, who's 4 million, relatively low wages. It's a good deal for all parties. Dan, I want to come to you next. And the next sort of bit of breaking news that we had this morning from the godfather of Liverpool journalism, no, I'm joking. Paul Joyce. Give us 2 seconds. All this technology and me.
Yeah,
it's So, Paul Joyce woke us up to the news and says Liverpool reject new offer from Bayern Munich for Sadio Mane, which would have only reached 30 million with multiple Champions League and Ballon d'Or wins. Player valued at around 42.5 million. So it's been coming, sort of murmurings and whatnot, and from Sadio himself, that he's gonna, he wants to try something new, something different. We knew that it's Bayern Munich. How do you feel about it first and foremost overall? I'll just quickly get my point of view out of the way.
There you go.
I'm very sad that we're losing one of the legends and iconic figures of the Klopp era. But I'm okay with it, knowing how we operate in the long term.
Yeah, you know what? I couldn't have said it much better. I completely echo them thoughts. It's the sort of thing that a few years ago, before the Klopp era, and even at the start of the Klopp era, would have really scared me. Like when Coutinho left, there was this realization of oh, what do we do now? Like our star player is going. He doesn't want to be here anymore. How do we deal with it? But we've seen how good we are under Klopp and how good the recruitment is now. It doesn't really faze me in terms of what happens next. Like you say, it's a massive disappointment to lose someone who's been as integral as Sadio Mane. He's been absolutely out of this world for us since he signed, essentially. We all remember that first game against Arsenal. What a way to introduce yourself that was. And it's pretty much gone on from there. He's never really looked back, has he, if we're honest? But at some point, we all knew this was going to happen. People might have thought it might have been Firmino first or Salah first. It turns out it looks like it's going to be Mane. It's a massive blow. I'd much rather it wasn't happening, but all good things come to an end, don't they? The only thing I will say now is the way it's sort of transpiring with Mane. I don't want to use the words playing games in the media, but I'm not in love with the way he's handled it, I must admit. I felt like before the Champions League final, he'd have been best served saying nothing instead of saying something special's coming and then that something special is leaving. I'm not convinced by that. And I'm even less convinced by the offers from Bayern Munich, quite frankly. And them trying to pass it off as sort of tit for tat for the bargain we got with Thiago, which we did, is laughable. And I think the club have described it as laughable as well, because the situations aren't the same whatsoever. But yeah, I'll let other people talk about the offer side of things. But yeah, disappointed to see Mane go, but I think we all know we're in very safe hands.
I mean, that's it, isn't it, Mick? The fact that we're so well run, so well organized in sort of near enough every facet right now, that even when it comes to a situation like this, where we're losing one of the icons and legendary figures sort of the recent 5-6 years, the majority of the fan base are still calm and okay with it. It just shows you the levels that we've reached, right, in terms of recruitment and evolving.
Yeah, it just shows you where we are as a club. Obviously, Sadio Mane has been here, 6 years? We've had this iconic trio for 5, which is a lot longer than most trios that you see around the world that are top of the game for so long. So the fact we've had it for this long and we've had that trio for so long, we need to just be blessed and just feel blessed and just kind of go, well, it was bound to happen at some point. Agree with Dan, not overly excited about the prices being touted. I'm not even sure I'm happy with 42.5, to be honest with you. I know he's just turned 30, but the whole falling off the edge of a cliff when you're 30 is just the biggest myth in world football, and especially in today's footy. Like Sadio Mane proved again, definitely from January onwards, that he's one of the best in the world by a long, long way. The goals he scored and the way that he got us over the line in some games and the way he was performing. So it's going to be a big blow, and I am sad to see him go, but we couldn't be in a better position and in a better state than we currently are with the structure, the setup, the manager, the recruitment, the coach, and whatever, the team that we've got to then go in and get another player in to make an impact and maybe shuffle a few people around. And you've just got to, I mean, it's blind trust, but I mean, Klopp's saying that now from like he doesn't miss. Like there's how many players has he signed that haven't worked out? You can probably count them on one hand or 2 fingers, to be honest. But we've just got to trust that we've got the best manager in the world and especially best recruitment in the world in terms of getting these players in. And like you look at Jota and players like that, where we wanted Werner, we get Jota, and then you're like, well, I'm not sure about this. And it turns out that Jota is a goal machine, albeit he hasn't been great since maybe Diaz came in, and he's maybe been out of the limelight a little bit because Luis Diaz is just that good. But we know that the right player will come in, whoever that is, whether it's Nunez or if it's not and it's someone else, then fair enough. But we know we'll get it right, and we know that will give them the right pathway to get into the team and progress further.
Mo, do you know what one of the things that I don't understand about some sections of the fan base is we're always looking to we start worrying about the age of our front lads and start thinking, where's the evolution going to happen? Mm-hmm. When is it going to happen? So for the last year or so, we've been hearing about them coming into their 30s and all running down their contracts and how are we going to do? We're stuck with an aging team because we always add Milner and Henderson to the equation of the front three as well. And then it just gives it an overall 30s look to it, right? But then yet, when we decide to make a brave step, like this is a brave step. It's a brave step from Mane, personal step from Mane, but from us, because we can make life difficult for him, right? We can say, no, Sadio, we want you. We don't mind if you stay and see out your contract, but we don't want you to go. We can't have it both ways, can we? Like Dan said, we gotta have we've got to reach a middle point where it's good for him, it's good for us, it's good for everyone. And you've been absolutely magnificent for us, Sadio. You're an absolute legend. Thanks. As long as we get what we value you as.
Yeah.
Bayern Munich are playing a funny, weird game, aren't they, Mo? What's your views? What's your opinions on the way they're handling this in terms of their lowballing us?
Well, what that tells me, the only thing that really tells me is that they believe that no one else is going to get a run at him. That's the only reason that they would even think of Liverpool would accept anything like that. Because as you say, look at the stature of the man and what you talk about in terms of the season he's just put together. It's not just about the volume of the goals, but it's when he scores the goals. He was Mr. Crunch Time. And that's something that, regardless of his fading of talents, that's something we're going to need to replace. And that is going to be possibly the hardest thing to replace. So you can't tell me that Sadio is not going to be on the list of every other team who's looking for a striker. Admittedly, we can probably rule out most of the English ones because, I don't think he would do that. Which brings me on to my next point, the whole kind of machinations and Sadio's talking. It's clear this isn't his strong suit, is it? He is normally just a humble, straight down the line, says what he means, clearly heart on his sleeve kind of guy. So when he has to try to be cagey and cautious, it ends up looking awful and clunky. And I think a lot of the times he uses words like we were saying about a special, like if you'd have sat him down aside from the cameras and said, is special really the word you want to use? He'd have probably said no, but it was too late by that point. And so here we are. So I'm still not going to hammer him. I understand why he feels like he needs to do this. There are still some parts of it I'm unsure about because it seems like he'd made this decision this time last year that he wasn't going to sign, that he was already leaving. And no one's really picked up on the why that is. That's something that I would like to hear at some stage. However, with the club probably being aware of that, whether they are, I don't know. You'd like to think that a lot of these other things would have already been starting to put in place. And
well, the biggest indicator for that, Mo, that the club knowing that was the purchase or the planning of Luis Diaz, who plays in the Sadio Mane position, right?
Which was my next point. And the irony
I'm so sorry. I'm so
No,
sorry.
it's fine. It works in what you weaved it in nicely. It's good. And so the irony of that is that Sadio's moved into the centre, alerted Bayern Munich to the fact that no, this guy, he's not just a potential replacement for Gnabry, he's a potential replacement for Lewandowski. And so that's why they went all the guns blazing on Sadio. They still seem to believe that they can get him with no one else getting him. I don't believe that to be the case. I agree 100% with what Dan said as well. Trying to bring the Sadio and the Thiago deal into it just makes them look small time. It really does. And I feel like we could even be in a situation where our replacement is already signed and in the building, and they're still haggling. And that's not really going to suit them well, because as much as you said that we, as a club, we love Sadio, we want to see him off with our best wishes. But if Bayern Munich don't do what they're supposed to do, we're not going to devalue you. And this is the dance you have to play, isn't it? It's like, we don't want you to go, but then by also, look, they have to prove that they really want you.
Yep.
And this kind of business is not proving anything to anyone. And I'll be amazed if no other clubs are looking at this thinking, maybe we should have a go at this. Let's see what a £35 million bid does. And then we go on from there.
There has not been one of the top clubs that let me rephrase that. Every top club has inquired about Sadio Mane, guys. I can tell you that for a fact. Every top club has inquired about Sadio Mane. The thing that irks me, Mo, and guys, I know a lot of people have I think, Dan, you mentioned the Thiago deal. That's the only thing that's irking me from the Sadio Mane handling of things. He's kind of given them the handshake to say, as long as you guys can sort it out, I'm yours. Yes. And that's what's stopping from other clubs making actual bids. But if they continue to sort of make feeble and embarrassing offers, like the club said today, embarrassing, we almost laughed. And you know what? Another thing, Mick, apparently when they mentioned the Thiago fee, our new man in charge, Julian Ward, said, well, it's more realistic to be compared to Lewandowski's situation as opposed to the Thiago situation. And they are asking 50 million, in the region of 50 million for Lewandowski. And if that's the case, 40 million is more than reasonable for Sadio Mane, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think someone just said that in the chat as well. If you, like, 4 years older, Lewandowski, albeit like he is a goal machine, but he wants out as well. It's going to be interesting, because I think at the minute, like, I agree with what Grizz says, they've came across a bit in the wrong manner, especially like trying to use Thiago as like, oh, well, we gave you Thiago, you give us Sadio Mane. It's like completely different. Like, and we've seen Thiago when he's on the field, he's one of the best there is, but it's getting him on the field. And Sadio Mane doesn't have that problem. He's always fit. He's always there. He always scores. He always produces. Albeit maybe not at the start of the season, but from, like I said earlier, from January onwards, he was absolutely terrific. And for the prices that's been bandied about, it's absolutely ridiculous. Like, he needs to be up a higher category than that if they want him. And I think obviously, if the contract ends next summer, doesn't it? They're going to want him now, especially if Lewandowski's going. They're going to need someone coming in right now. Whether they go, if they get to the point where they go, well, we're not paying that, we'll come back in the summer. And that's a different ball game, I suppose. But yeah, we need to. It's one of them. You just need to play them at their own game as well a little bit. And like we just touched on before, we've got the best recruitment and the best coaching staff and whatever to deal with this type of thing, whether it's incomings or outgoings. We saw in the past the way we've got good money for players that we really shouldn't have, like Raheem Brewster and maybe Solanke as well, and players like that. Obviously, it's not the same caliber, but you see the point I'm trying to make, that we should be getting a lot more for these type of players than that's being touted in the media, and hopefully we do, because we can't let a player. I think it would sour it a little bit, is what I'm trying to say. Like, in terms of Sadio Mane's legacy,
we don't want that.
Else. And you don't want him to then go for like 35 million and whatever else, and you kind of like, you wish him well, all the best for what he's done. Then you're like, we should have really got a lot more for you than we have, and it kind of. I don't think it tarnishes like a legacy or whatever else, but it would leave a bit of a sour taste in the mouth, I think.
I think Sonny makes a very good point here, doesn't he, guys? It's the years and years Bayern have spent bullying the Bundesliga teams and getting their way. It's given them a belief they can do that with the same, with equally sized bigger clubs. I mean, we're the last club you choose to do that kind of thing with, right, Dan? We're so savvy when it comes to these kind of things.
100%, yeah. And Mick's dead right to bring up sort of the point about how good we've been at extracting every penny from other player sales previously. And the point with the Mane deal is to a lot of clubs, it might not necessarily be the most important thing in the world to get the most money because of the way they operate. But we all know the way we operate, we need to get as much money as we can, because we've got our own plans this summer. And the extra 10, 15 million, whatever it may be, from this Mane deal that we're looking at will go a long way. Like, that is a portion of our next player. You know what I mean? That's the way we have to look at things. So we're right to sort of stand our ground and say, and like Mo touched on earlier, we might have our replacement in, and Mane might still be kicking around at the club. Like, it's a weird scenario, but we've got to stand our ground and say, no, you pay the money, otherwise he's not going. And I wonder, because I know Barcelona are having trouble sort of with Munich in terms of getting Lewandowski from there now. I wonder if there's a world whereby they come for Mane and potentially pay that money there instead. Do you know what I mean? And Bayern Munich are left in limbo again because Lewandowski's already set his stall out and said, no, I want out. I think he's come out with some really interesting comments.
He's you know, we're talking about sort of Sadio Mane possibly turning it into a bit of a sour ending.
Yeah.
It's nothing compared to the Lewandowski situation. He's actually said Bayern Munich are a horrible club. Like, maybe I'm paraphrasing, but I don't think I am. But like, who would want to come here? Like, sort of the way they're dealing with this whole scenario, and we definitely don't want to go down that route. And Sadio, very quickly, did you guys notice, guys? Very quickly the other day, when there was a bit of drama in terms of what he said in a press conference, he came back the following day and just sort of went serious mode and said, "I would never disrespect fan base. They've taken me like family." So I absolutely understand where you guys are going with this. We don't want to end it sort of like Lewandowski's seemingly ending it at Bayern Munich. But Mo, in terms of what we'll be happy with, so we know that they've put a package to sort of to us that sort of makes it 30 million in the end, but I think 7 million's made up of ridiculous add-ons where he has to win the World Cup 5 times or something like that. Do you know what I mean? It's mental, right? They're not serious, are they?
Add-ons is where teams often trip themselves up, if you ask me. Because if you're telling me that we're making a deal where we feasibly believe that this man will win multiple Ballon d'Ors, but we're still not willing to pay more than £21 million for him right now. It's like, huh? Like, even a child would turn that
Think
down.
about that. That's you're sharp though. But I'm not saying you, but even anyone can see through that, right?
And it goes back to what I'm saying about Bayern have to prove to Liverpool and to Sadio how much they want him. Because we are still in a strong position. We don't want to let him go for free. And there will maybe world clubs who are thinking, well, if Bayern don't do what they want to do, we'll just sit and wait and try and get him next year. And that's a dangerous game to play. No doubt about that. But I still think at the end of the day, Bayern Munich will have to get rid of Lewandowski. And I think that might be the key because they will have to fill that hole regardless. So they may think that they can hold off, but I don't think that they'll be able to. And again, if it comes down to a game of chicken and we've already got our replacement in, then we're just kind of sitting on the wheel like this and they're sitting on the wheel like that. And I think that's essentially what we're going to see. Liverpool aren't going to be bullied into doing anything they don't want to do.
Yeah, and I think we've let them know that with the use of, because a lot of people have been speaking about how much noise there is in the media with regards to our incomings and outgoings already. But I don't know what you guys think. I think it was needed in these two particular cases in terms of the outgoings and incomings, because the clubs were playing such a cat and mouse game. I think both clubs have used their big journalists from their respective countries to make the noises and let people know where we are, where we stand. I think you've nailed it, Mo. I think we've got the upper hand. But I think, just quickly going around, guys, in terms of a figure, I think if they give us like a base figure of 30 million with another 5 to 7 million add-ons, realistic add-ons, I think it's probably time we move on. I don't know what you guys think, Dan.
A little bit more than that for me, to be honest. And I don't know whether that's sort of like a sheer love for Sadio Mane.
Yeah, it is.
Potentially, you might have to put that to one side when you're talking business, quite clearly. But I still believe we've got to be looking at a basic of 40 million. And rising from that point on, personally. And if they're unrealistic add-ons, so be it. But if we've got our 40 million to start off with, I reckon that's decent business from our point.
I think you're nodding, Mo. You agree with that?
Yeah, that's my base level and my absolute base level as well. I mean, I'm still kind of huffing at you as I'm taking your 40 million quid, but I think that's a way we could walk away and feel like, okay, we've got what we absolutely needed. But again, I'm looking at like I don't know which one of you said that the comparison with Lewandowski, but that's exactly where it needs to be, because again, going back to Ballon d'Ors and bests and stuff like that, we're going to see Mane second, Lewandowski third, or maybe the other way around, but they're going to be in the same ballpark. These are players of the same quality. And so that has to be reflected if you look asking me. And it's easy for me to negotiate with other people's money as well. I have to admit that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just feel like it goes back to where we are as a team. And we are appreciating that, yes, someone else might feel like that they want a different challenge, but they aren't necessarily going to a bigger and better. That's not what's happening. And so when someone who's been that integral to our team, that massive a player in our team, not only historically, but last season, then that has to require a big fee 1 year on his deal or no 1 year on his deal.
Is there, in that case then, Mick, is there a case, this might go around again to you guys because different people have different opinions. Is there a case then, Mick, if like Mo and Dan are saying 40 million as a base figure, I personally can't see it. But if there is a 40 million base figure that Bayern, don't reach, is there a case of us really, really digging our heels in and keeping him because he's so vital? Even though we've got a certain, which we're going to come on to, people, if we get enough likes, there's 800 of you and there's feeble amount of likes, the ratio is poor again, you're embarrassing me, yourselves, and the panel. So yeah, if we don't get that figure, if they're still insisting on 30 million circa, what do? Is there an element of you that's saying we keep Sadio Mane? My God, he's useful, to say the least.
I think so. I think so. I agree with what Mo said. Like if Bayern are wanting 50 million for a 34-year-old who's a world-class striker, then what, Sadio Mane is just turned 30. He could go to the Bundesliga and play for another 4 or 5 years and score a load of goals.
He's going to score loads. He's going to score.
So you've just got to factor that in. And I think they need to. We need to play a bit of hardball. I think we need to just see how it goes. Especially if we get the certain player in that we're going to touch on. If we get him in and then like the guys have nailed it pretty much, then we're sitting pretty. Then we can then go, well, we've got our fella. And if you want Sadio Mane, you're going to have to come and get him. And you need to show us what he's worth. You need to show the player what he's worth as well. That if Sadio, if there's like a gentleman's agreement that he's going to go to Bayern at some point, it's just the fact of the fee. And for me, I was, before you guys were saying about 40 million, I was thinking 50 million in there, but then I'm just thinking, am I being a greedy bastard and just harboring a lot of love for Sadio Mane, which is probably 80% true, but at least base figure 40, add-ons that aren't ridiculous, like 6 Ballon d'Ors or whatever else, like just like achievable targets that push it over the 50 bracket, then I can go, well, then I'm happy. And I know I can see people in the comments saying let him go, went for whatever fee, like for cheap. I'm like, that's not how it works. Like, he's been here 6 years. He's been one of our best players. Obviously, we gave him the platform, but he's earned the right to be one of the best in the world. But we gave him that platform, and he's quite rightly our player. So we can demand what we need and what we see fit. Like Dan said, all these little incremental fees that we get from other players along with this one are going to go a long way to getting other players in. So we need to hold out. Hopefully we get the right fee, and that's what I'm hoping. I mean, but then, like you said, worst case scenario, do we play hardball? I honestly don't know the answer to that one. I don't think we do personally, but who knows?
The other thing to say in the whole, let him do what he wants, and he's given us his blood, sweat, and tears. Let him dance away like we're a charity. We want him to stay. Like, we want him to sign a new deal. He doesn't. He wants to leave, and him making that decision is the key for us making those other decisions about us having to protect his value, etc., etc.
I think I can't see us digging our heels. in, I think it is a case of sort of leveling up, finding the balance. I personally think it's going to be a deal that sort of totals 40 million as opposed to 40 million. But hey, listen, how dare I underestimate Julian Ward in his new role? You know, he seemingly started off like a bang, because that's the slight, sad, disappointing thing with the Sadio Mane, one of our heroes, no doubt, all of us. Please give me permission to speak for all of your behalves. Sadio Mane is iconic, legendary hero of ours. And it's going to be a sad day when he actually leaves. And I'm massively disappointed he's not going to get the send-off that it absolutely deserves. I don't know how you get around that, or if there's, I don't know how that works. I don't think there is a way that works now. Obviously, the ultimate one would have been him lifting the Champions League trophy, but it wasn't to be. So therefore, when you've got such a massive, massive hole to fill potentially, and I know the noise was, well, Luis Diaz is the replacement. We've already planned 6 to 12 months early. I get that. But then you're losing Sadio Mane's output, which is goals, assists. And then you're losing Divock Origi's output. The combination of Divock Origi and Sadio Mane is huge. We need to go huge, I felt. Not in terms of money and price, but in terms of caliber of player, in terms of what's out there. And for me, one of the most sought-after names after Haaland and Mbappe was this Darwin Nunez kid. Now, we broke up. Hope we'd never break up, people. We broke up to the news that, here we go. This news, people. Now, Mo, talk to me out this one. So Paul Joyce again says, Darwin Nunez keen on Liverpool and Liverpool interest is clear. Will come down to price. Now, this was the first part of the tweet. We then get intel from certain foreign journalists that suggest that the bid is in, that personal terms are agreed, and it's literally a matter of time. It's literally a matter of possibly 3 tic-tacs here. Mo, your initial reaction?
Well, my initial reaction is good, because obviously it's Joycey, and we've always talked about the fact that he doesn't get involved until, you know, you're pretty sure that something's going to happen.
He doesn't get involved in the eyes emojis and all that, like, you know, Grizz Khan does. Yeah.
No, he's reliably straight and ace like that, and that's kind of why we all love him. So yeah, it's something to pay attention to. And in terms of the profile of player we were looking for, again, sounds very good. Sounds almost like a perfect fit. When it comes down to price, that's the interesting part for me, because some of the things we've heard over the course of today, in terms of Liverpool won't pay X, Liverpool will pay X, and all of that kind of stuff. This kind of goes back to what we were saying before about Mane and Munich. You've got to dance the dance between not letting the selling club think that you're going to just pay willy-nilly and pay over the odds, but still letting the player know that you value them and that you want to get them and that you're willing to pay a fair price for them. And that's not an easy dance, don't get me wrong. We are better at it than Bayern Munich, clearly. But it sounds exciting. It sounds like Liverpool, once they heard whatever confirmations they'd heard from Mane, maybe it was they knew that he didn't want to sign a deal, but then they heard that he'd agreed something with Bayern, and so that means they've had to push the Nunez button. But it appears that we seem to have once again moved ahead of certain other teams in the queue, because frankly, we can give them what they can't.
Absolutely. Dan, first and foremost, give us any insight you may have on this player. Did you know much about him before we played them? And then there was a bit of noise around that period, wasn't there?
Yeah.
And then slowly the links come out. Just your thoughts on the player first and foremost.
Well, I'm over the moon. That looks like we've actively pursued him. To be honest, I really am.
Massive fan, are you?
Yeah, massive fan. I was very much aware of him prior to us coming up against them. But but my sort of knowledge of what he's about went up tenfold after those 2 games, obviously. We were actually sort of tentatively linked with him about 12 months ago. Melissa Reddy did a piece whereby essentially every big club in Europe went and watched him. And we were one of them, of course. And his goal record was okay in his first season in Portugal. It wasn't outstanding. But after that, he's just gone through the roof, quite frankly. And Mo mentioned sort of a high ceiling earlier. This kid has got an astronomically high ceiling, quite frankly. He's got everything. He's still very raw. I think we've seen that in the 2 games we played. But as an athlete, and I describe him, he's a specimen, quite frankly. He just looks like the perfect mould of a centre forward. And he's also got that physicality, which we haven't. Somebody earlier on said we're looking for sort of more physical beasts when we talk about Calvin Ramsay, and it might be something, a line we go down. And straight away I thought Darwin Nunez, because he fits that bill. He's 6'2", and he gets about like you've never seen before. I mean, that Anfield game, like Benfica, if we're going to be honest, were a pretty average football team. Like, they weren't anywhere near Liverpool's level. Let's be quite frank about it. But they were in that game for 180 minutes because of one man, and it was Darwin Nunez. The only reason they had any sniff in that football match was him the entire time. The Anfield game, he had the ball in the net 5 times. He was extraordinary. He was unbelievable. So I think he's got the lot. I do think he needs to learn a lot, and I think Jurgen Klopp and the coaching staff will have a lot of work to do in terms of his link-up play, because his assist numbers aren't fantastic.
Yep.
And that sort of side of his game hasn't quite been there yet. But in terms of raw ability and raw talent, this kid's got it.
Mick, Dan says he's been a fan ever since sort of he set eyes on him, since his Almere days, basically. How much do you know about this kid? Because he is essentially still a kid. And what's your initial thoughts on him?
Yeah, obviously, similar to Dan in a way. I knew of him, and I knew he was a good player. But it's not until you're at Anfield and you see just how much of a beast he is. Like 6'2". It's the pace that gets me. It's really surprising. I know it's like, I think Usain Bolt broke the mold a little bit in being 6'4" and being absolutely rapid. And you're like,
yeah.
wow, someone that fast, that big, and you're like, that's like becoming more and more the norm line with Van Dijk and Khanage. He's rapid as well, but he is absolutely lethal. I think there was a moment, I can't remember what game it was in against Liverpool, where Matip's kind of showing him outside, and he just goes, all right then, skips by Matip like he's not even there, and then gets a ball into the box. And I was just like, I know Matip's not hugely fast, but he's still pretty quick. I think he clocked up like the 2nd fastest time as well in the Champions League. Only Alphonso Davies clocked a faster time, which says all you need to know by how quick he is. And I think that's a big facet of our game, isn't it? Being quick, and I think like Dan said as well, like being direct. He picks the ball up, he runs at you in a Luis Diaz type way. Obviously, he's a lot more raw, and he's not as maybe technically gifted with the ball, but he'll just pick it up and go, yeah, I'm going to run at you, and he'll try and run past you, try and bully it off the ball. He's got the frame, he's got the pace, and he's got the power. So it's one of them. Liverpool are really good at picking these players up and right before the sweet spot, before they explode into something extraordinary. And we've done that with Jota, we've done that with Luis Diaz. There's a whole host of players you could go through, a load of names that we've done it with. And hopefully this kid's another one, because I think he got 34 goals last year and 41 apps, which is like, I know Dan said the league isn't maybe the best league in the world, but to put up those numbers, and quite rightly, people might say, oh, that's just a breakout season. There's obviously not a huge sample size to look at over an extended period of time, but obviously, like I keep saying, like, we're the best at getting these players in and identifying a target and knowing what to do with them and knowing exactly what they're going to be in the future when we give them the right tools and the right formation and setup to go and thrive in. And I think he'll definitely do that.
Mo, are you equally as a fan as these two are? I must admit, I wasn't a huge fan. I thought he's very raw. I thought the price compared to experience and rawness was a bit, because we're looking at 75 million. Because let me just share this. Here we go. Where is it? So Neil Jones of Goal says Liverpool are confident of completing a deal for Darwin Nunez, and he mentions the 75 million pound figure. What are your thoughts while I get rid of some stupid bots in the chat. Sorry.
It's all right. They do let them do what they would need to do.
Yeah.
One of the other things in that report from Neil Jones is said that the club would prefer a swift agreement. Now, he doesn't say which club, but I suspect in reality that will be both clubs. So that might be a case where Liverpool are looking at the talent, looking at the potential, looking at the fact that this is a 22-year-old kid who, if he goes as we expect him to, you could get a good decade out of him. So that's £75 million when you amortize it into that way, even with the wages potentially going up year on year, it's still going to work out as a solid investment. And Liverpool haven't been afraid to do that when they feel is right. I want to pick up on a couple of things that I've seen in the comments as well.
Mm-hmm.
His first touch, I think most people who've watched him have seen it, that probably needs some improvement. But what I would say about that is you have to understand to a certain extent the kind of game he plays in Benfica. A lot of the time, the ball's either hit over for him to run onto and use that pace, or he's basically deflecting balls into the paths of other people. So it's not necessarily a game where his touch is going to be refined over time, but that is something that you can pick up and improve on. And if you are having to play rondos with the likes of Fabinho, Thiago, and the other players that we have in our place, then yes, it's probably going to improve, and probably quite at a rapid rate, because again, he's young and he's still improving. The things that he does do and that he can do already are devastating enough to buy him the time to develop those things. Because the other thing about Nunez that I like a lot is his intelligence in terms of his movement. His ability to find space even when there isn't a lot of it, and his instincts about dashing across the box and freezing defenders. And when you've got a guy who's got that kind of movement, and then again, we've got midfielders who know how to spot that kind of movement. Once they're in sync with him, that's going to be devastating. And yes, he's not going to be playing against teams that are going to give him enough space to run into, as he got for Benfica. The same with Luis Diaz. But he'll find a way. And finishing-wise, I think is something that we mentioned this physicality, his height. It's really going to be an extra string to our bow, because not only is he going to be a potent threat in that area, he's maybe going to draw 1 and 2 defenders. And what does that do? It makes space for everybody else. You know who's going to love playing with Darwin Nunez? Mo Salah.
I think Mo Salah, but I think our fullbacks, Dan, our fullbacks will come into their own. I think look out for their stats potentially next season, because we've got a few super chats. People, don't be disheartened. I am going to read out your super chats, but this one's relevant for now, Dan, because I was going to ask you about this as well. And Selection sends in a super chat. So he says, do you guys think Klopp will change the system? He does, because as Mo says, this guy, this kid, we still have to call him a kid, gives us a different dimension. We haven't got a striker like him. We had Divock Origi, but this guy's far more physical, far more mobile, physical, aggressive. I think they're the 3 words I'd use to describe him than Origi. Is there a potential formation change you see with this happening?
There's definitely potential for it. I think 4-2-3-1 has potentially been muted with him, obviously, at the forefront of that. I think it's difficult to envisage us doing that. I think we're so ingrained now into the 4-3-3, and it works so well, and it has done for so many years. What we might see is what we've seen at times this season. I think we've seen it against Norwich at home, where we went to the 4 forwards, and Origi was actually one of them when he came on. He did that quite a bit this year, Klopp. And I think that's something he could turn to more often with someone like Nunez. I think you're right to obviously mention Origi, but I do think we're talking about a different calibre of player here. As much as I love Divock Origi for what he's done, in terms of out-and-out quality, I do think we're up quite a substantial amount on this one. But I think also the fullbacks is a great point, and I had to smile when it got mentioned, because their numbers were already, quite frankly, ridiculous. So if we're going to stick a 6'2" fella in there who's very good in the air, and his aerial prowess has already been seen in his short career so far, we're talking, the possibilities are endless, quite frankly, with Trent and Robbo whipping balls in, and Tsimikas, of course, and potentially Calvin Ramsay to throw into that mix. But just want to mention something on the Salah point in terms of that link up, because I think that is something we haven't really seen actually since he's been at Liverpool with Salah, because he came from Roma where he had Dzeko to link up with, and that worked really well in Serie A. They linked together really nicely, and he's linked up well with Firmino, but Firmino is a very different type of player. He's very clever. He works in areas very nicely. He hasn't got the physicality of a Dzeko or a Nunez for that matter. So we might see a different side to Salah this season as well, which if we thought we'd seen it all already, then who knows?
You make a good point, because you're right. Salah played with a big man up front at Roma. Jota played with Jimenez at Wolves. And Diaz played with someone hit me with a big guy, Marega at Porto with a big guy.
Mr. Marega,
yeah. So, he was big in.
So there's he was massive, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So there is some elements of truth in that theory that we are evolving our attack. Similarly, sorry, Mo, you was going to say something. Go on.
I'm obsessed with the idea of us evolving our attack, because I think it's something.
And Carvalho, sorry, I'm going to butt you back in. Carvalho played with Mitrovic, and Carvalho, I genuinely think, lads,
in a 10.
I genuinely think Carvalho is going to be the wild card of the season. I genuinely think that.
I'm kind of more thinking that rather than it just being like a 4-3-3, the 4 forwards is something that we are going to see more and more of. Like, shout out to the always excellent Sam Maguire. He did something on this recently, talking about how it's kind of happened a few more times over the last season, and a lot of the people who we are looking at in terms of midfielders have played in a double pivot, and a lot of the people we're looking at in terms of attackers have played across, and we're looking at more 10s. You mentioned Fabio Carvalho, someone else, Jude Bellingham. I believe if Jude Bellingham comes in, then he would probably be playing more as a 10 than in a traditional double pivot. So I can see it being where we will still line up 4-3-3 in most matches, but when you kind of freeze frame the pitch when we're attacking, that 4-2-4 is going to come in more and more. I'm sure of it. I can smell it.
You know, you can smell it, but you've mentioned a name there where it's just going to get the chat absolutely rattled all over the place. And I don't know if it was a fraudulent slip, or what it was. But look, Mick, listening to these guys speak about him and you speak about him, I'm coming around to seeing absolute elements in his game that will favor us and give us a different dimension. And another thing that people forget, he played for Benfica, and Benfica are your Man City, your Liverpools of the Portuguese, where they're up against low blocks most weekends, right? So he will have know-how. He will know how to create space and everything. How would you describe him as a player? Because a lot of people will want to know what kind of comparison in terms of. So I've seen shouts in the chat saying sort of he's a more aggressive, bigger Jota. I've heard Torres shouts. I've heard the other side of Ibrahimovic shouts. How would you describe him, do you think? It's a difficult one, I know.
I saw the Torres one, and it actually made me I was like, oh yeah, that sounds good actually. I mean, like Torres when he joined was just different levels of stuff, weren't it? And obviously went on to be one of the best. But yeah, I think he can fit a load of different formations, and like the boys are saying, like whatever we change to, I think he can adapt to that, because he's 6'2". He can be a target man, albeit that's probably not his main game, is to be a target man. But when you're 6'2" and you're good in the air, that's naturally going to be.
Sometimes you've got no choice. Yeah, get up there, son.
You're going to get the ball lobbed into you at some point. That's what I'm
exactly.
Trying to say. But I think he likes to drop out left. Yeah. I think, like we said with Diaz and Jota, they kind of like to do that as well. But we're talking about this like it's a problem that these players like to go out left. We're like, well, if they do that, then once they start training with each other, they'll start to learn those like little slight lefts, little central lefts that they can take up, different positions. And I think he's quite a mixed bag in what he provides. It's honestly so exciting to if we get it over the line, because like I said, it's the pace, the power, the finishing, like the boys touched on, is just ridiculous. Like the amount of, there's a few offside goals against us, but I think someone in the chat made a good comment. Like he passed the biggest test, the Alisson 1v1, which I thought was a really good point, because we know how good Alisson is 1-on-1, and quite frankly, made him look stupid a couple of times with the finishing that he pulled off. Like the one that did count, where he hit it with his right foot and it just kind of swept bottom corner. Like Mo said, I think you said earlier, like that's the type of finishing that sometimes we do need, because maybe Luis Diaz needs to improve that part of his game. If there's anything that can be improved, to putting the ball in the back of the net. If we do lose Sadio Mane, we do lose a goal threat, because albeit Sadio Mane can be a bit haphazard in his finishing, but he puts the ball in the back of the net more times than not. And I think Darwin Nunez definitely provides that, and the fact that he can come into this team and get into training with the lads and rondos, getting, like Mo said as well, like I just keep using your line, sorry Mo, the Thiago, like you can just vision it, Thiago through balls, and the ball's in behind by Trent, the ball's into the box by Robbo. They're playing the slightly higher balls because he's a bit taller, rather than the ones across the maybe mid to low range, but the higher balls into the box that we can play back stick, front stick, like corners would be more of a threat. You could just go on, and I think that's why we've gone all out for him. I think because he can provide that kind of forward three coverage, which is what we like from any forward player, and he definitely brings that in abundance.
Just a couple of super chats to get through. Who had Jota killing it? Someone's says Nunez is going to eat good. Rido says Darwin is Klopp's next Lewandowski project.
Good show.
Scary.
Good
I mean, that's true as always. You're on mute.
Did you see the video of Klopp talking about him from before the press conference before the game? About him, literally with his eyes like swooning.
Good-looking boy.
Yeah, like, but the way he broke down his game, and you can always tell with Klopp when he's giving someone a compliment, because sometimes it will sound a little bit like broken, like it's like half sentences, like, you know, it's almost like he's leading off a list, like these are his good qualities, like he's reading it off who scored or something. But when he likes someone, then he really waxes lyrical and he really gets into it, and you can see it in that one. And that tells me not only the fact that he really likes him, but that he's really thought about how he would use it, and that's the part that excites me.
Dinesh Karai here, Gujarat Titans IPL champions 2022.
Nice.
Big IPL fan, are you?
Yeah, I do enjoy the IPL. I'm more T20 Blast, to be honest. Yeah, but I do like the IPL. Yeah, it's still the best cricketers in the world. You can't go wrong, can you, really?
Yeah, exactly. Sends in a super chat. Sorry, back to point. Evening, Grizz and everyone. Nunez will improve his game. Any job in the world. No one is perfect. As an electrician, I was taught and became good. Good on you, son. And he's very good. And as you said, Mo, it's you know, he's got so many facets to his game, and who's the best, and the way Klopp spoke about him and spoke about his certain attributes, you know, pre-season, him and Pep Linders get hold of him. This guy could become anything. Yeah. And then we'll look at the fee in a few years' time and said, wow, what a snip, right? Because at the moment it is a bit of a difficult one to sort of maybe, you know, accept that 75 million. But hey, Sim says, Fabio, a starter or squad rotation? Dan?
For me, squad rotation. I just don't see. I think he's got all the talent in the world, and I think he has got a role to play. You clearly have very high hopes, Grizz, but I just don't see how he forces his way into the starting lineup to begin with. I think that's really difficult to envisage, personally.
I think Mo. I think he starts as a Diaz understudy. I've said it quite numerous times. I feel as though he's going to be a Diaz understudy in cup games. You know, as we know how it works. I think the long-term plan. I think is an attacking 8 or a 10 if there's a formation change.
I agree, and I think that having the ability to do both is going to be important for him, and it's kind of the path that both Jones and Elliott have done, isn't it? From being wanting to play as a midfield centrally, but having to learn out wide in the forward line while they're still learning the responsibilities and all of those things, and then eventually being able to assimilate into the middle. So I can't see any difference from Fabio. I'm really excited to see how he mixes into the group, because he's another one, like you said, that they've been planning for a while. So, and we've seen sometimes with pre-season, the pecking order can sometimes be jumbled up in a way that we don't expect. So, yeah, I'm not expecting too much from him, but I am intrigued to see how he goes.
H. Singh says, yes, lads, we never thought Gini, when we signed him, he would play the role he did to his level. Felt same with Jota, Mane and Robbo even. It's the Klopp effect. I think he's referring to sort of the Nunez, you know, how we're going to have sort of see him panning out. El Drago, if we are going to lose Mane, Origi, Taki, who scored a total of 39 goals, wow. Last season, we need something special. I think we're in agreement that this guy is special.
Yes. One other thing I would say about that, we scored 147 goals last season. So we still scored 100 more than those three. Perspective.
Will Jota get a run of, Nicholas says, will Jota get a run of games? Mick, why shouldn't he?
Yeah, of course he will. Of course he will. I think he, like I said, he's been kind of taken out the limelight a little bit with the arrival of Diaz, but like the cup runs went through with him, he was absolutely electric and has been since he arrived. So once he gets back to that form, which I imagine I expect he will do once the new season comes, he's a ridiculous footballer. He really is. Like from the left through the middle, obviously maybe not from the right as much, but that's another thing that he can learn, and he can grow into that a little bit more. When he does get shoehorned out there, it doesn't look the most comfortable, but like if he learns that right role as well, then what a player he will be. Because from the up centrally and from the left, he's always a threat, and I think he kind of needs to. I don't know if he needs to have more confidence in himself, because I'm sure he gets a lot of that from Klopp and the.
I think he's a fairly confident. You can tell. Yeah, he's quite a confident fella, isn't he?
I think maybe the Diaz. I don't know if the Diaz coming in and kind of being a bit flashy and whatever, and being really quick, and then starting a lot of games, maybe kind of in the back of his mind was like, oh, I'm going to be on the bench tomorrow or next week and whatever. And I don't know if that plays on your mind, but I know he definitely plays a load of games next year.
The timing of when it happened as well, when you think about it, because not only at the point when Diaz came in, it was late January, early February, and he got his injury against Inter, and up until that point, he'd been the man. Like the Jota song was blasting all game, every game. And it was brilliant, and he was loving it, and we were bringing him into it, and he was becoming one of our main guys. And then, so when that happens, and then to flip from that to him being out, and suddenly Diaz is all of a sudden the main guy, then it's going to affect you. And the thing about, is he going to get a run of games? I think we all agree that even if Nunez comes in, you'd expect Jota to still start the season because he's had this longer in the system.
Yeah.
But we've seen times where it's like mentally, if you think, okay, well, Diaz has locked down the left-hand side forever, Nunez will come in and be our central, then where is Jota's forever place, so to speak? Because it's not really on the right if we're thinking Salah's leaving. So that's the point where it might be difficult for him. But I don't know. I mean, again, so many times with Liverpool players, you think, okay, well, that guy's ahead of that guy. And then the season will start again, and then suddenly it all changes. So I don't think any of them should be disheartened with where they are at this moment. They've all got the chance to go again.
Sorry, go on, Dan.
Yeah, sorry, just to say on that, I think the end of the season actually came at a good time for Jota, personally, in a really strange sense, because he did look a little bit disenchanted towards the end for me, and it might well be because of the points the lad raised there, but he had a really odd campaign because he started off like an absolute house on fire, and like I say, he was the man of the moment for quite a number of weeks, and his overall play in that 9 role became really much improved. His link-up play, everything he was doing was brilliant, and he was for a while sort of the heir to Firmino's throne, obviously. Like, it was just perfect. He was scoring goals on top of it as well. But I don't know, everything just kind of fell off a cliff a little bit, but he was getting away with it for a while because he was chipping in with important goals, and then the goals dried up, and then all of a sudden his performances became exposed. So, like I say, I think the end of the season was really important so we can have a reset.
Not only that, I think you've got to give him some leeway, because the amount of times we changed the strike force in terms of personnel as well. It wasn't a set formation he was playing with. It wasn't set sort of personnel. So it wasn't a set sort of Mo and Salah and himself. We kept changing, and then Diaz comes in, Mo and Mane, I meant, sorry. So it takes a bit of getting adjusted adjusting, because look, Salah suffered as well as a result of it.
Yeah.
It's not only Jota, Salah struggled as well with the changes, different types of players, different sort of runs that people make. And I think you're right. I think the season ended at the right time because it gets a chance for him to have a full pre-season. He's not going to the World Cup, is he? Did Portugal qualify? No, but they did, didn't they? Damn.
Later, yeah.
That's later on, though. So he'll still have a chance to reset. And I think he's got the mentality. And this is what I love about Darwin Nunez. I see a lot of mentality-wise, guys. I see a lot of mentality that Luis Diaz and Jota show as well, in terms of this never say die, this hunger, the desire, the passion. I'm loving that already, Dan. And I mean, it's honestly, I can see it. Like, you see him, he's such a passionate guy. Like, even when he played against us, even though the goals were, probably didn't mean nothing, the first one or two, but then you could see the passion in him. I think we may have a gem. In terms of tic-tacs, I think it's fair to say this is a 3 tic-tacs. I think it's just a matter of, literally just a matter of possibly announcing even tomorrow or the day after. I think it's that close. And that's quite a bang to start off with, right, lads? So we've got Carvalho, we've got Ramsay, and we've got Diaz, obviously, that we've brought forward. And now we've got Nunez. So there has to be some outgoings. Taki Minamino is being suggested that if we get offers in the region of 15 to 20 million pound, Taki Minamino will be sold. Are you okay with that? Where do you stand with that?
It's a difficult one because I literally just did a show for the Echo that came out today where we were discussing the fringe players and what's their true value and how we can just get obsessed with the pure numbers of it when we have to remember the season gone, how important they were, not just in terms of getting those domestic cups in which he was top scorer, but in terms of being able to give the other guys rest at certain times. He came in, he scored 10 goals from 20 shots. Is that really repeatable? And if we give him more minutes next season, would he be able to replicate it? My feeling is probably not. So look at 20 million, which represents more than double we paid for him. And in a similar way to what we said with Shaqiri, the numbers add up. You never really became first choice, but you were important in some of our big moments. And when you come back with another club, we'll wave, and we'll give you a nice little applause. But I think that's kind of how I feel with Taki. Like, don't get me wrong, if he starts the season at Liverpool, I'm not going to be up in arms, but it just feels like the perfect ending,
Does this change anything, Dinesh? I'm not going to read out the full title, Dinesh. I'm just going to call you. In fact, I'm going to abbreviate Dinesh. I'm going to call you Din. We have 5 subs we can bring off the bench, and Mane does not look good. Mane does not look. Go look at our front. Mo Salah and Diaz not going to the World Cup, so they will be rested. But does the Taki Minamino situation, could he be kept knowing that we've got 5 subs? And do you know where I'm going with that, Mick? I don't know, because 5 subs is going to be crucial. I think the stronger squad that you have and the stronger depth and quality you have on the subs bench will help.
Yeah, and I echo what Mo said. Like, what did he get? 10 goals in like 20 odd appearances, which I agree. I don't know if it's sustainable for the sheer amount of minutes that he got to the sheer amount of goals he got, which was just ridiculous. Personally, like if you get 21 mil for him, we've pretty much trebled our money.
Yeah,
it's just brilliant business, isn't it? Like we all said when we signed Taki, it was a free hit, 7 million. It took a while to get going, but last season, he proved just how much he has improved. Like the runs in the cups, and I think the goal against was at Southampton, which was a crucial goal, and some crucial goals that he scored. And I think his overall play improved a lot as well. So I think we've made him a better player, and that he's proved that he's Premier League proven. And if we get treble our money from him, then I think, like Mo said, he goes with our best wishes. If I could keep him, I would, because I think like as an option coming off the bench, or like you said with the 5 subs or whatever, we need some more fresh legs, and he can play multiple positions. I think he's a good option. But if it comes down to the, like we touched on before, with just getting those incremental transfers adding up to get another player in, then if you're getting 20 million, then it's probably worth it just to shove it along into it and get maybe to the Nunez fee or to whatever fee we're looking at in the future.
Absolutely. And I think, I mean, I don't know. In terms of Tic Tacs, I'd give that probably a 2. I'm not sure with that one either way. Would you guys agree, or do you think it's definitely, Mo thinks it's definitely out, right?
I mean, I just think that there is a lot of clubs who've already played their hat, who've already registered an interest.
Yeah.
We're hearing reports of his agent flying to Europe already.
Yeah.
It feels like this is a decision that's been made that if X happens, then Y happens. And I mean, Taki is obviously going to get into the Japan World Cup squad regardless, but he'd like to be there playing and regularly going into that. So from his perspective, you can see a world where he'll be happy to leave. But I mean, again, it just shows how difficult it is, because the things that we think are priorities now, when we get into the meat of the season, we're going to be thinking, oh, God, where's Taki when you need him when we're 2-0 down against, Portsmouth in the FA Cup 4th round or whatever. But, I mean, who knows? Maybe that's where Kai Gordon comes in. Maybe that's where Fabio Carvalho comes in. We don't know.
Absolutely. Dan, finally, just while we went live, I think Neil Jones tweeted about Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain being allowed to leave the club and West Ham being very interested. Again, this one pretty much like Neco Williams. Neco Williams. Yeah, pretty much like Neco Williams. Tendo said in a proper Scouse accent there. I think this is. I get. Okay.
I was going to say that. I mean, that's not Scouse.
All right, I'm learning. All right, I'm learning. I think that's another nailed-on one. Oxlade-Chamberlain, pretty much price-wise, hit me. I don't know what we're looking at price-wise. I'd say anything above. I'm being honest and realistic. Anything above 12 million, I think we snap.
Yeah, I think I was thinking 20. 20 sprung to my mind straight away. To be honest with you, and that might be pushing it slightly. That might be with my sort of,
love Fox now.
How good we've been in the market actually is my sort of main driver behind that. And I believe we could get that for him. And I think it's important, like we've already touched upon numerous times, that we do get every penny we can. Again, a strange season for Ox. In terms of where we stand on selling him, I think it's a no-brainer that he moves on this summer, quite frankly, from a club perspective and from his own personal view. I think there will be suitors. I think West Ham does make a lot of sense. His fitness is actually, he's actually been relatively fit all year, hasn't he?
I don't think he's been injured.
Well, exactly. He just hasn't managed to. January, he had a decent January when obviously Mo and Mane were at AFCON, and he had a bit of an impact. But then as soon as they were back, he barely kicked the ball and was at the FA Cup game against Nottingham Forest, and he came off, and he was visibly quite annoyed at the fact. I think he essentially mouthed, "I haven't played for weeks," and then you never see him again after that, and you think, writing's on the wall here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we've thought that for the past couple of summers, to be honest, about Oxlade-Chamberlain. But I do believe with Carvalho coming in, with Harvey Elliott shining, etc., it has to happen this time.
Two points I want to make about Ox. One, going back to what we said at the beginning, he's probably going to be another example of someone who looks like they can't play football just because they can't play Liverpool football regularly.
Yeah.
And in terms of the fee, one I'd like to flag up is the Danny Ings deal, who was in a very similar situation where his reputation was ruined by injury. And we did a deal with Southampton where it was a loan but with an obligation to buy. And obviously, there can be parameters sitting there around appearances, around goals, what have you. But if you're asking me, on Oxlade-Chamberlain get on a season at a West Ham, at a Wolves, at a, dare I say, Inter Milan or Sevilla, and then you get into a situation where he goes there, thrives, and then they're willing to pay the money, and it was like, yeah, nice one, thanks.
Yeah. Look, as El Drago says, Spurs want 20 million for Harry Winks. Surely we can get the same.
I mean, Spurs ain't getting 20 million for Harry Winks.
No, they're not. No, exactly. They can ask. They can ask.
Winks, won't it?
Sure. Yeah, you get 40 Winks. Exactly. Good one. But they're not getting 20 million. I think I think we're in a difficult situation, aren't we, in terms of the contract scenarios with him, Keita, and our front lads, where we've got to make a decision one way or the other. Either they go into their last year of contracts, which we don't want, or we extend. And I think we're extending Naby's one, and we're going to let Ox go, which kind of makes sense. I know you're right, Dan. Or was it Mick? Ox not saved us, but rescued us a couple of times while the AFCON was on, right? He scored a few important goals here and there. So
Brentford, yeah.
But listen, I think that's more than enough action for the first. We can't give the viewers everything in one show. We could go on. There's so much more to talk about. Mo touched on a few players' names that we're going to go into the next episode or the next show. But I think that's more than enough for our opening day. Wow, the transfer window's not even open, lads. I think it officially opens on Friday, Mo. Is it Friday or?
Yes. I'm checking my calendar.
Look at this. Mo's got calendars for these things. Mo's organized. This is what you call professional. Whilst I look for how to do an outro for this damn thing. This is what you call. That's what you call professional. This is what you call. Trying to do these things amateurish way. But listen, hope you guys have enjoyed it. People, there's still over 800 views. Smash a like on the way out for me. It just helps with the algorithms. Massive thank you to Mo, first and foremost.
No problem. I'm always here for you, man, as long as my voice can hold up.
Both of us, you're a legend. I noticed we muted a few times. And a couple of times the cough got you before you could get to the mute. But it's all right. People, some people are into that kind of thing, hearing it's mad. This world of YouTube is mad. People like listening to obscure, random.
Shouldn't have told me that.
Nick, thank you very much for your precious time as well, my man.
No worries. It was a couple of times I was drinking my drink and there's just a load of ice in there and I forgot to mute it. So you might have heard a few clanging bits a few times. So apologies for that.
No, you're right. And Dan, back to the cricket this weekend. Have you got a game lined up? How's the weather holding up? How's the weather been so far?
Weather's been glorious, mate, surprisingly. Normally miss at least a couple of games by now, but no, a double-header this weekend as well, Saturday, Sunday. So, good to go.
Double-header, were you going to play Saturday and Sunday? So both, I'm assuming, right, okay. So how many overs a game?
Well, I play time cricket, so my Saturdays is time, so it's 110 overs in the day, essentially. I won't go into the rules because it's chaos, whereas Sunday's cup games, that's just 45 overs.
My God! So after Saturday, quick ice bath, and then you're good to go again.
Good to go. That's it, mate.
Amazing. You're amazing. Listen, appreciate your time, all of your times. It's been amazing. It's been a great show. I think we've put on quite the show for everyone. This has been the Tic Tac Show. We will be back. We'll be back depending on news and circumstances, possibly this week. Otherwise, we'll be back next week. Hope you've all enjoyed it. Over and out. Take care.